Okay, we're good to go. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay, good morning. My name is Jill Greiner, and I'm an independent contract hearing officer for the Cosmetology Board, which means I'm not an employee. I'm just basically an independent third party. And I've been appointed to hear this matter. It is October 22nd, 2020, and it is approximately 9:33 a.m. And the case in front of me right now is Nevada State Board of Cosmetology versus Smokin' Hot Hair Salon. It is case number C2020-0969. Starting with the board, can you all make your appearances, please?
Justin Taruk, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of the Executive Director Gary Landry of the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology.
Okay. Is anybody here for the respondent?
For us, that's James and Michelle Wade, both here, owners of Smokin' Hot Hair Salon.
Okay, I'm sorry. Can you repeat who you are?
I'm James
Says
Wade.
hey, James
owner,
Wade. Okay.
And my wife, Michelle Wade, here.
Okay.
And Ms. Greiner, for the record, we have Leah Easter, who introduced herself earlier. She is the compliance coordinator of the board. We
Okay.
also have Michelle Fanning, who is an inspector of the board, David Scarpelli, Lisa Wynn, Rodney Moore, and Aaron Littler, who are also all inspectors or employees of the board present.
Okay. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Like I said before, this is a date and time set for a hearing on the complaint. Are there any preliminary matters? And I guess, well, let me just start with Mr. Wade. Are you ready to proceed with a hearing this morning?
Yeah.
Okay. And as far as procedural, the procedure of the hearing, I'm going to let the board go first, and then you're going to certainly have an opportunity to question their witnesses, and then after that, it'll go over to you as far as presenting your case and witnesses or anything else that you think is appropriate to introduce to the hearing. Do you have any questions? Either party have any questions about the procedure?
No.
Are there any documents that either party wishes to admit, either by stipulation at this point, or just wait? If you'd rather wait and try to introduce the documents during the hearing, that's fine as well.
Ms. Greiner, I don't think that there's a stipulation for the exhibits, but as part of the complaint, there were 5 documents that I listed as exhibits that I'd like to enter into the record. They were also provided to the respondent at the time that service of the complaint was made.
Okay. And Mr. Wade, again, confirm you did receive the complaint. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And then did you have an opportunity to review those documents that were attached, the exhibits?
Yes. I mean, some of them are photos which aren't really visible in the printed file that we received in the service, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, well, we can, you can certainly bring that up during the hearing. As far as Mr. Taruk, is that the correct pronunciation?
Taruk.
Taruk, do you wish to admit them at this point, or do you want to wait till you start getting witnesses on?
If we could admit them now, it's just so I can just go one by one throughout the testimony, that'll be fine.
Mr. Wade, any objection to admitting them at this point?
No, it's fine.
Okay, all the exhibits will be admitted. And I have to go back, I guess. I just forgot how many, was it 5 exhibits?
There are 5, correct. Just for the record, Exhibit 1 was the Declaration of Emergency for COVID-19 Directive 003. Exhibit 2 was Directive 018. Exhibit 3 was the Roadmap to Recovery for Nevada Hair Care Salon Guidelines. Exhibit 4 was May 19, 2020 inspection notes and photographs. And Exhibit 5 was July 16, 2020 inspection notes.
Okay, thank you. Would either party like to make brief opening statements?
I can make a brief opening statement.
It's up to you.
Sure. So I guess I'll go first. So this case is against Smoking Hot Hair Salon. The board received several complaints from consumers that the salon was not in compliance with the directives by the governor for facial coverings. During the inspections of the board, that was corroborated, and that's what the evidence will be proved today.
Thank you. Mr. Wade, is there any statement you'd like to make?
No,
Okay. Mr. Taruk, call your first witness, please.
I'd like to call Maggie Adams, please.
Here. Can you hear
Good
me?
morning. Yeah. And I'm going to go ahead and swear you in unless the board has any, unless somebody else would rather do it, but I'll go ahead and do that. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay. Actually, I do want one other preliminary matter. Just wondering if either party would like the exclusion of non-testifying witnesses. In other words, to exclude witnesses who are not testifying from the hearing, so they're not influenced perhaps by testimony. Mr. Taruk, do you have any thoughts about that?
I have no preference. Everyone's welcome to observe the witness who's being questioned.
Okay. Mr. Wade, do you know what I was, did you understand what I just raised, the issue?
no, I did not.
Okay, so sometimes in these administrative hearings, we like to exclude witnesses who aren't testifying just so they don't hear somebody else's testimony and then they're influenced by somebody else's testimony. And that would be, it's up to you if my understanding is that the board has several witnesses. Am I correct, Mr. Truitt?
We have one. I'll be calling three.
Three? Okay.
They're all employees of the board.
Okay. Mr. Wade says back, it's your call if you want them to be excluded while each of them are testifying.
No, that's fine. They can all listen in.
Okay, all right, sorry. Okay, go ahead with your witness, Ms. Adams.
Okay. Maggie, can you state your name for the record, please?
Maggie Adams,
Okay. And what is your job title?
specialist.
Okay. And that's with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology, correct?
Yes, with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology.
And
I'm sorry to interrupt. What's your job title?
I'm a compliance specialist with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology.
Thanks, I can hear you now.
And Ms. Adams, as the compliance specialist, what are some of your job duties?
I receive and log complaints. I process them by sending them, putting them on a spreadsheet to go out to the inspectors, and then I process complaint inspection reports, amongst other duties.
And how long have you been in that position?
Almost 2 years.
Has that been your position, your only position with the board?
Yes.
Are you familiar with Smoking Hot Hair Salon?
Yes, I am.
All right. And how are you familiar with them?
They are a licensee. We have also received a series of complaints.
And as part of your job duties as a compliance specialist, did you send out the notice and complaint in this case?
Yes, I did.
And did you review that complaint before you sent it out?
Yes, I did.
All right. To your understanding, what's the basis of that complaint?
That they weren't following the governor's directive regarding face masks and also double booking clients.
And earlier you just testified that Smoking Hot is licensed by the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology, correct?
Yes,
Okay. Do you know what type of license they hold with the board?
they are licensed to perform hair services.
Okay, and is that a cosmetological establishment license or?
Yes, it is a cosmetological establishment license.
All right, and as far as the records for the board goes, do you know what the license number is for Smoking Hot?
The license number for smoke is S13045.
Okay, and has that always been the license number for Smoking Hot to your knowledge?
To my knowledge, it has been.
Okay. Um, do you know when Smoking Hot first obtained its license as a cosmetology establishment with the board?
February 28th of 2012.
Has their license always been active with the state board?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. Are you aware that that Governor Sisolak issued a declaration of emergency due to the current COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, I am.
Okay. If we could look at Exhibit 1 then. Could you tell me what this document is to your knowledge?
It is the Declaration of Emergency for COVID-19 Directive 003.
Have you ever reviewed this document before?
Yes.
Okay. If we can look at Section 2 of the directive, I believe that starts on page 2 of Exhibit 1.
Yes.
Could you read that section for me into the record, please?
It says non-essential businesses that promote extended periods of public interaction where the risk of transmission is high, including fitness establishments such as gyms and studios, aesthetic services such as beauty shops, barber shops, nail salons, tanning salons, and wax salons, and any other such non-essential business shall close effective March 20th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. for the duration that this directive shall be in effect.
Okay, thank you. We can put Exhibit 1 to the side then, and if you could turn with me to Exhibit 2, please.
I
Ready?
have it.
Okay.
Yes, I'm ready.
Can you tell me what that document is to your knowledge?
It's the Declaration of Emergency Directive 018.
Okay, and if we could look at Section 16 of that directive, that is I believe it's page 5 of the exhibit.
Okay.
If you could just start, if you could read for me where that Section 16 into the
It says
record.
Section 7 of Directive 13 is hereby rescinded. Effective May 9th, 2020, nail salons, hair salons, and barber shop licensed by the Nevada Board of Cosmetology or State Barbers Health and Sanitation Board may reopen to customers provided that.
Okay, and then if we could skip down to Section 5 of that section, what does that say?
It says technicians, stylists, barbers, and other employees must wear face coverings at all times.
Okay. And then if we could go to Exhibit 3 then, we could put Exhibit 2 to the side for now.
Okay,
What is that document to your understanding?
that is the roadmap to recovery.
Okay, and to your understanding, did the state board assist in creating this roadmap to recovery?
It was, I believe that there was input requested by the governor's office committee.
Okay, and this document specifically refers to hair care salons, correct?
Correct.
Okay, if we look under in mandatory, do you see the word mandatory in the middle part of that first page?
Yes, I do.
Okay, under infection prevention item checklist on the left
Yes.
side,
Mhm.
you see that the second line is face masks included in the infection prevention item checklist.
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay.
they are.
Now, with regards to exhibits 1, 2, and 3, have you had any training regarding the board's position as far as what the directives mean and when a violation would occur under the directives we just went over?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and what type of training did you receive?
We receive training via Zoom every other week and also ongoing communication via email, regarding the directives and updates.
Okay. And so to your understanding, what does section 16 of Directive 18 mean with regards to wearing face masks?
That all employees and staff have to wear face masks when they are in public.
Okay, looking back to Exhibit 2, sorry, I skipped over this. If you can look on the last page of that exhibit,
Okay,
you'll see the state seal of Nevada. It looks like a blob, like a black circle, kind of, but it should be the state
Okay.
seal. It says in witness whereof. Do you see that?
yes.
Could you just read that sentence for me, please?
In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the state of Nevada to be affixed at the state capitol of the city this 20th day of March in the year 2020. That one?
May 7th, correct? I think you said March, but
Sorry,
May 7th?
got it. Last page for that one. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the state of Nevada to be affixed at the state capitol in Carson City on the 7th day of May in the year 2020.
Okay, thank you. As far as your job duties as a compliance specialist, you receive consumer complaints, correct?
Correct,
And you review those consumer complaints as they come in, correct?
correct.
Okay. Did you ever receive any consumer complaints against Smoking Hot?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And when was the first one that you received against them?
First one I received was May 18th of 2020.
Okay. And what was that complaint about?
It stated that Michelle at Smoking Hot was not wearing a mask. The stations were not 6 feet apart, and she was doing service with 3 different people at the same time.
Okay. And other than that May 18th, 2020 consumer complaint, did you receive any other consumer complaints?
I did. I received another one on May 21st of 2020.
Okay. And what was that complaint about?
Again, that masks were not being worn, that there were people waiting. It included that there was blow drying going on and double booking was happening.
Okay. After you received the 2 complaints, oh, sorry. Did you receive any other complaints other than those 2?
No.
Okay. And after you received those 2 complaints, did you have any inspectors or board employees go out and investigate them?
Yes.
Okay. Could you just tell me briefly how these inspections or investigations occur generally when you receive
Okay.
a complaint?
So when we receive a complaint, we log it and it is placed on a spreadsheet that the inspectors then choose the complaint based on routes, what their coverage areas are. They take that complaint, investigate it, and then return a complaint investigation form, basically.
Okay. When you after you received the consumer complaints from related to Smoking Hot, did you ever communicate with anyone from Smoking Hot regarding these complaints?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I was actually,
Sorry, go ahead.
I did. I sent an email.
Okay. And do you recall when you sent that email?
I sent that email on July 16th of 2020.
And who did you send that email to?
I sent it to the email account for the salon.
Okay. And the email account, that's the one that's listed with the board's records,
Right.
correct? Okay.
Correct.
What prompted you to send that email?
Inspector Fanning had gone out to do an inspection and relayed to me that the owner stated that she didn't receive any communication about what's required in terms of the governor's directives. So I enumerated all of the places and the information that was sent out to each licensee and each salon owner, as well as information from the CDC, Nevada Health Response. All the information that I had was forwarded to her.
Okay, and you said that part of that email was correspondence that the board had previously sent over to licensees, is that correct?
Yes, the board sent out information to every licensee via email.
Do you recall when that mass email went out?
I don't, off the top of my head, I'd have to look that up.
Okay. So the email that you sent in July to the email address that was for Smoking Hot, that was just kind of like a second time that you sent that information to them. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
not me personally, but the second time there was communication from the board about what their requirements are.
Okay, thanks for that clarification. Other than that July email that you personally sent to the email address, did you have any other communications with anyone from Smoking Hot? That's a no, right? I didn't hear
That's
it.
a no, sorry, that's a no.
Thanks, Bill. I have no further questions for Ms. Adams at this time.
Okay, cross-examination.
The only thing I have to add, I guess, would just be, can we know who the complaints were made by?
All complaints are anonymous.
So what are the chances that these are just disgruntled employees that made these allegations?
We would have no way of knowing. Our job is to investigate all complaints that we receive.
Okay. And then based on the initial emails that were sent out, I'm just kind of looking over these real quick. Give me just a second. So our understanding was the initial, the first visit, which I believe was in May 18th, was a gentleman that came out. For that one, it was not Michelle that came out for that first inspection. He brought up the face masks where my wife, Michelle, at that point had said to him that that we were under the impression that it was a recommended requirement as far as the face masks go. And he, at that point, agreed with us that there was nothing he could do. There was no mandatory rule put in place at that time, which was the first inspection by him.
So, Mr. Wade, sorry to interrupt you, but you'll certainly have an opportunity to testify. I'm really just, this is just the time if you have any questions for this witness.
Well, I'm asking her because she only brought up Michelle's visit to the salon. She didn't bring up this other gentleman at all.
Okay, what's your specific question about that?
So who was the gentleman that did the inspection the first time? I believe it was May 19th. And
I believe the first inspection was performed by David Scarpelli.
okay. And he's not here?
I believe that he is here.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't have any questions for her.
All right, any redirect?
No.
All right. Well, I can excuse this witness. Do you have another witness?
I do. I'd like to, at this time, I'd like to call David Scarpelli.
Mr. Scarpelli, are you there?
Yep, right here.
Not seeing you visually, but still not seeing you.
David, I think it might catch you if you say something because I think it brings you.
Hello. How are you today?
There
I
you
got
go.
you.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. Say something again so we can see you.
Yep, I'm right here. I'm ready.
Okay.
I'm ready.
I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and swear you in. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
All right. Mr. Scarpelli, could you just state your name for the record, please?
Yes, David Scarpelli.
Okay. And could you just spell your last name just so that way the record's clear?
SCARP, like Paul, E, like elephant, LLI.
Thank you. And are you employed with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology?
Yes,
All right. What is your job title with the board?
inspector.
Okay. How long have you been an inspector?
Almost 5 years.
is that the only position you've ever held with the board?
Yes.
Okay. And briefly, could you just give me some examples as far as what you do as an inspector?
We perform inspections, complaint inspection, licensing inspections. And these inspections are to protect the health and safety of the public that go and get cosmetology services performed in the state of Nevada.
Okay, thank you. Are you aware that Governor Sisolak issued declaration of emergencies due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever reviewed them prior to today?
Yes.
Okay. Have you ever received any training regarding the board's position on those directives?
Yes.
And what you mean, and did that training include any direction as far as when a violation would occur under those directives?
We would meet together with the inspectors would meet with the compliance officer and compliance specialist, and we would discuss what the directive was. We did not, and we do not have anything in our law that states that we can issue citations based on what this directive is. So at the time, we would just document what we saw.
Okay. And you said that you had trainings with the compliance team. How often, if you didn't, I'm sorry if I missed that.
No, I didn't state how often. It was every 2 weeks.
Okay. Ms. Adams actually just read in her testimony what section 16 of Directive 18 was. Do you recall her reading that out loud?
Yes.
Okay. To your understanding, what does section 16 of Directive 18 mean?
Face coverings must be worn at all times.
Okay. Are you familiar with the respondent Smoking Hot Hair Salon?
Yes.
And how are you familiar with them?
Smoking Hot is an establishment that's licensed by the Board of Cosmetology.
Okay. Were you ever assigned to perform an inspection on Smoking Hot?
Was I ever given this? It's always on our route to do an inspection. I think at this time it was a complaint. So yeah, it was given to me at the time.
Okay. How were you assigned that specific inspection to go over to Smoking Hot?
Inspectors are given routes by the office that consists of a list of salons that are located in a specific area of Nevada based on zip codes.
Okay. And so Smoking Hot was just part of that zip code group that you were covering, correct?
It is, but at this time there was a complaint that came in, so I ended up going on the complaint.
Okay, I see. Do you recall the first time you did the inspection on Smoking Hot?
The first time in regards to this complaint?
That's correct.
Yeah, the 19th, May 19th, 2020.
Okay. You said that the board received a complaint before May 19th that triggered your inspection, correct?
Yeah, I believe it came in the day before, May 18th.
Did you?
That's when it was given to me to go and perform it. So I went the next day. May 19th.
Okay. Did you review the actual consumer complaint that was the basis of your inspection?
Did I review it?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Do you recall, as you sit here today, what that consumer complaint stated?
I don't recall exactly, but I know it had to do with the governor's directive.
Okay. Do you recall specifically what about it? Was it with face masks or social distancing?
Just remember the social distancing, the face masks and or face coverings, and I believe taking more than one client at a time. I believe.
Okay. And earlier you just said that your inspection was on May 19th, 2020, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And earlier you also stated that because there was no regulation currently in your books that allows for the face covering citations, you didn't issue a citation at that time,
Yeah,
correct?
no citations were written. No.
Okay. If you could turn to me to Exhibit 4, do you have a copy of the exhibits?
Yeah. Yeah. Right here.
Okay.
Exhibit 4.
Yep, please.
Yep, I got it.
Okay. Could you tell me what this document is?
This is the May 19th, 2020 photographs and an email that was sent to Maggie Adams
Okay.
in the office.
And it says your name, David Scarpelli. Is your email address david@nbcosmo.com?
Yes,
So did you draft this document?
yes.
Okay. Do you recall when you drafted this document?
Drafted it 5/19/2020 at let's see, 1 o'clock.
Okay. If you could you read what you wrote to Miss Adams, please?
Yeah, let's see. I wrote Maggie, investigating complaint C 2020-0525 and found licensees Michelle and Tyler not wearing face masks and defying governor's directive. There was also a good amount of alcohol on site. Let me know if you have any questions, David.
Okay. To your knowledge, who are Michelle and Tyler?
Michelle and Tyler were there during the inspections. They are licensed cosmetologists with the board.
At the time of, oh, sure.
Sorry,
At the-
go ahead.
At the time of your May 19th, 2020 inspection, were Michelle and Tyler performing cosmetology services?
Yes,
And just to add on to that, they were performing these cosmetology services at Smoking Hot, correct?
yes,
So it appeared that they were employees or worked at Smoking Hot, correct?
yes.
Okay. Part of Exhibit 4, it looks like there were 3 small little thumbnails, but then 2 large photographs. Is that part of your Exhibit 4?
Yes.
Okay, if we can look at the first page, the one that you just read off of with the 3 attachments.
Yes.
Can you tell me what each of those photographs appears to be?
The first photograph at the top, it's also blown up or made bigger later on in the exhibit, but that is, I believe, the licensee Tyler performing a hairstyling service, which is under cosmetology service.
Okay, and to your recollection, or can you tell based off of the bigger photograph if that individual is wearing a face mask?
They are not wearing a face mask.
Okay, and so let's go back to the first page, the second picture thumbnail. What is that?
That's just a picture of alcohol on site.
Okay, and then the third picture, could you tell me?
The third picture is licensee Michelle performing a cosmetology service.
Okay, and these 3 photographs were taken during your May 19th, 2020 inspection, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Did you introduce yourself at the time of the inspection on May 19th, 2020?
Yes.
Okay, and who did you introduce yourself to? Do you recall?
I don't recall. I just remember walking in and they turned around and looked, and I just explained who I was and why I was there.
Okay. At the conclusion of your inspection on May 19th, 2020, did you have a discussion with any employees at Smoking Hot about the governor's directives?
Yes, I did.
And who did you have that discussion with?
I talked to Michelle.
Okay. And what was that discussion about, if you recall?
From what I remember at the time, it was a suggestion that the clients wore masks, but the employees had to wear the masks at all times. So I remember explaining to her that the clients didn't have to wear the mask. That was a suggestion. Employees had to wear the mask or have a face covering. And I also explained to her that at the time, there's no citation or anything that I could do. I didn't know where it was going to go from here. All I knew is I had to document this and submit it based on it being a complaint and the governor's directive not being followed. So I had to document something in regards to it, but I didn't know where it was going to go at the time.
Okay. So but you never told them that employees wearing a face mask was a suggestion, right?
No, all I said was the clients was a suggestion.
Okay, but that employees of a salon had to, it was a requirement for them to wear facial coverings, correct?
It was required, yes.
Okay.
But once again, I remember telling them I didn't know where this was going to go because there was no citation or any law or anything like that that I could issue for that. But I was documenting it, yes.
Okay, and you informed them that you were documenting it, correct?
From what I remember. Yeah.
Okay. After your May 19th, 2020 inspection, did you perform any other inspections at Smoking Hot?
No.
Okay. No further questions at this time for Mr. Scarpelli.
Mr. Wade, do you have any question for Mr. Scarpelli?
Yeah, it's just a few questions for him. First question is, so when he first asked you if you remembered how the discussion went with Michelle, you said, if I remember correctly. So does that mean you don't 100% remember that conversation?
Oh, no. I mean, I don't. I know I have a specific spiel that I would do when we first went out, which was, it's a suggestion that clients can wear the masks, but the employees must wear a mask. And then if questions were being asked back to me about where this goes, I don't know where it's going to go. That was my answer. I don't know. We don't have any laws. We don't have any citations or anything in our regulations that I could write up at the time. And I just honestly didn't know where it was going to go. Once the new directive came out, I guess it was sometime in June where the governor stated everyone had to wear it, then my spiel or whatever you want to call it changed at that point where everyone has to wear it. So.
Okay, well, so Michelle remembers it differently. She remembers that there was no, you suggested that it was all a suggestion and a recommendation, as well as she says you never mentioned that you were documenting anything. The other complaint that was on there was a social distancing, as well as multiple clients being services being performed on at a time. Did you witness any of that? Did you measure the distance of the stations or?
No, that was fine. Everything was fine. The only thing that there was an issue on was the face coverings or the masks.
Okay, and then as far as the alcohol on site, what was the point of bringing that up in the email?
When it comes to business licensing, we kind of work together with them when it comes to seeing alcohol in an establishment. I don't know, what the licensing, when it comes to what business licensing looks at when it comes to alcohol. I just know I have to document it and just let the office know that there was alcohol on site. I don't know where it goes from there.
So there's no, as far as you know, there's no regulations on personal use of alcohol, as long as there's obviously no sales of alcohol, not requiring a liquor license or anything.
With the Board of Cosmetology, we don't have anything about the sale or I guess the consumption of alcohol on the clients. No.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
You redirect?
No questions.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Scarpelli.
Thank
Do you have any more witnesses?
Just one more, and I'd like to call Michelle Fanning.
Michelle Fanning, present.
Good morning. I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. Can you please raise your right hand? You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth.
Thank you.
All right, good morning, Michelle. Could you just state your name for the record for me, please?
Michelle Fanning.
Okay. And are you employed with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been employed at the State Board of Cosmetology?
About 4.5 months.
What is your job title at the board?
Inspector.
Okay. For the 4.5 months that you've been employed with the board, have you always just been an inspector?
Yes.
Okay. As an inspector, could you just give me some of the job duties that you perform?
As an inspector, I look for sanitation issues as well as licensing compliance.
Are you aware that Governor Sisolak issued a declaration of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes.
Okay. Earlier, I had Ms. Adams read 2 of the directives, Directive 3 and Directive 18. Prior to today, have you read those directives?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever receive any training with regards to what those directives mean and when a violation would occur under those directives?
Yes, we have ongoing emails, and twice a week or twice a month, we meet on Thursdays in a Zoom meeting and discuss them.
Okay. To your knowledge, specifically with the two directives that were stated onto the record, what type of, what is your understanding of those directives?
That masks must be worn at all times by employees while in the salon area, as well as 6 feet apart and no double booking.
Okay. Are you familiar with Smokin' Hot Hair Salon?
Yes,
How are you familiar with them?
Yeah. they are a salon in the cosmetology field. They're a licensed salon.
In Las Vegas, is that correct?
They might be, might be in Henderson.
Okay, but it's in Nevada, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you ever perform an inspection of Smokin' Hot as your duties as an inspector of the board?
yes, on July 16th, 2020.
Okay. Prior to your inspection of July 16, 2020, did you perform any other inspections of that salon?
No,
Okay. The July 16, 2020 inspection that you performed, was that based on a consumer complaint?
yes,
Okay. Prior to your inspection on that date, did you review that actual consumer complaint?
I just reviewed the notes in the complaint log for that complaint that they were not following the directive.
Okay. Now, on your July 16, 2020 inspection, what did you notice when you were on the inspection?
When I entered their salon, there was 2 customers without masks and 2 employees without masks
Okay.
in the salon area.
When you say in the salon area, were the 2 individuals, the 2 customers and the 2 employees, were the employees performing cosmetological services on those individuals?
One was in the front and he had his mask under his chin. The other one was in the back of the salon. She appeared to be getting some kind of dye. There was, she had a customer in the front, but she was in the back hallway, but she was in the salon area. There was also a third employee in the salon, the break room, but she appeared to be eating, which I believe is in 19 guidelines.
Okay. So just to make the record clear, there were 3 employees that you saw on July 16, 2020, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and so one of them was a male individual at the front of the salon who didn't have his face covering his nose and mouth, correct?
correct.
And instead it was below his chin?
Yeah, it was right here. Yes,
Okay.
it was below his chin.
And
His
then,
mouth and nose were exposed.
okay, and then the second individual you saw was a female employee who was getting dye, correct?
Yeah, she was in the back hallway and she had something in her hand, but she did not have a mask on and she was in the salon area.
Okay, and then the third employee was eating in the break room, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
or appeared to have just finished, but she was consuming or drinking something in the break room. So I didn't mark that on the report.
Okay. If we could turn to Exhibit 5, do you have a copy of the exhibits, Michelle?
Yes,
Okay, awesome.
I do.
Let me know when you get there.
I'm good.
Okay, can you tell me what this document is?
This is an email I sent approximately 15 minutes after my inspection of Smokin' Hot Hair Salon.
Okay. So you drafted this email to, who did you draft this email to?
My supervisors, Maggie and Leah,
Okay,
Maggie Adams and Leah Easter.
and they both work for the State Board of Cosmetology, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And just to confirm, you drafted this email 15 minutes after your inspection on July 16, 2020?
Approximately.
Okay.
Approximately.
Could you read to me what you wrote to Miss Adams and Miss Easter?
Yes. Okay. Rockin' Hair Salon S13045 was not following COVID-19 guidelines on 7/16/2020. 2 employees and 2 customers were not wearing masks in the salon. When I spoke with the manager about this, she was very adamant about several points. 1, she claimed she did not understand COVID-19 guidelines. 2, stated that she received no specifications from State Board. 3, said that Inspector David told her it was just a suggestion to wear masks and she didn't have to wear them. 4, she and her employee informed me they thought they did not have to wear masks when they were more than 6 feet from a client, and they cited gyms as an example of not wearing a mask. 5, she requested an email be sent to her with specific guidelines, which Maggie sent to her already in parentheses. 6, when advising her about the employee in the front of the store with no mask, she said, quote, and he was an independent contractor. She can't control what he does and he's new, quote. 7, she told me that if a client has a head wrap around mask, they're allowed to take it off for coloring, and that the second client had a health condition, but provided no documentation or record. Things to note. I told her in a firm voice that there were concerns that the salon was not following COVID-19 guidelines. I informed her that I had just witnessed the COVID-19 guidelines not being followed by 2 of her customers and by 2 of her employees. She said I was yelling at her. My voice was raised and firm, but not yelling. I corrected her on this and she agreed. When trying to educate her about policy, she stated that she did not know any of this because she was never told anything by the State Board. The conversation improved by the end, but I would hope that she understood the current guidelines, but I am not sure. I spoke to Maggie on the phone as well about some of the details as well. Videos attached in the Google Drive link.
Your email refers to Rockin' Hair Salon. Did you mean Smoking Hot Hair Salon?
Yes.
Okay, and the way, I guess you also documented it as salon. What is S-13045?
That is the code for Rockin' Hair Salon. Sorry, I did it again. Smoking Hot Hair Salon. They have like a very rock themed establishment. So, but it is Smoking Hot Hair Salon, and that is the code for it and the address.
That's their license number, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you noted in your email under things to note, you referred to the manager. Do you recall who that is that you spoke with?
Michelle.
Okay.
Michelle.
Was Michelle the one who you previously testified was the one who had chemicals in her hand or was grabbing something?
No, that was another employee in the salon.
Okay. Was Michelle present during your inspection?
Yes, she was the one in the break room.
Okay. When you went on your inspection on July 16th, did you introduce yourself when you first walked in?
I did not, because I was there for a complaint. So often people try and put their masks off if you say masks on, if you say who they are, and I wanted documentation. I did introduce myself when I spoke to Michelle in the back to address the concerns.
Okay. So when you stated that you talked to Michelle under things to note, that was upon your completion of your inspection, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. When your email stated that you spoke to Maggie on the phone, Maggie refers to Maggie Adams, correct?
Correct.
Okay. When did you speak to her? Was it during your inspection or after the fact?
Directly after.
Okay. Do you recall what you spoke to Miss Adams about?
I gave her a brief summary and also requesting her to send the email, since Michelle requested an email be sent with everything. I asked her to do that for me.
Okay. Under things to note, was that the gist of your entire discussion with Michelle at Smoking Hot upon your completion of your inspection?
Yes.
Okay. Did you, and I just wanted to confirm, did you tell anyone from Smoking Hot that the face directives required face coverings on all employees at all times?
Yes, I did.
Okay,
And at that time, customers were required to wear them too. So I said everyone needs to be wearing them
okay.
in the salon, whether they're getting hair services or not. Dye services.
Your email refers to an independent contractor, or someone told you that the person in the front was an independent contractor. Who told you that, who were you speaking to who told you that was an independent contractor?
Michelle.
Okay. I have no further questions for Ms. Fanning at this time.
Mr. Wade, do you have cross-examination of this witness?
Yes, I do. How are you doing, Michelle?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. So your email here, the heading says Rock and Hair Salon. So a salon that you just did an inspection on 15 minutes prior to drafting this email from what you stated, you didn't even remember the name of that salon, but you are pretty adamant that all of these items, numbers 1 through 7, as well as the things to note, you remember those 100%. How is it that you couldn't remember the name of the salon, but you remember all of these items so well?
So we have a lot of salons with the same name, so it gets confusing at times. You guys do have a cool rock vibe, so rockin', smoking. And I probably rushed a little bit too much, to be honest, with typing that part because I wanted to get to the rest of it, so I didn't forget the important details.
Okay, so the name of the salon isn't an important detail when you're, reporting to your supervisor the issues or guidelines that are being, not followed. That's not an important part of that.
The number is more important than the name, but the
Okay.
name is also important, but the number was the important thing, which I did get correct.
Okay, and then what part of the directive does it state that clients are required to wear face coverings as well?
That's not part of the directive, but this is in July 16th, where CISLAC had demanded that everybody in any public building was wearing a mask.
So there's no directive, it's just
It was
something.
all over the news.
So like I said, it's just something that he said, it's not a directive. There was no document sent out to anybody to know what these things, what the requirements are for those people that maybe don't watch the news. How are anybody supposed to know what these requirements, these new requirements, if there's not a directive or any documents sent out?
It's not the initial directive, but I believe there is a second directive.
But you don't know which one that would be?
No.
Okay, and then you also stated that the first employee that you saw when you came in was wearing his mask down around his chin. Where in the directive does it say how the face mask has to be worn?
It has to be worn properly, covering nose and mouth.
It says that in the directive as
It
well?
does not on his chin.
But it says that in the directive. In section 16 that Maggie read, does it say anything about the way the mask has to be worn or the face covering has to be worn?
Wears face coverings. It wasn't covering his face. It says technicians, stylists, and barbers and other employees must wear face coverings at all times. Wearing it on your chin is not a face covering.
So it changes what the item is once it's not worn properly. It's no longer, so if you take a mask off, it's no longer a mask.
I'm not quite sure what you're getting at, but it says face covering and it was not covering his face.
Okay, so it just says they have to wear a face covering, correct? Doesn't say how it has to be worn.
Must wear face coverings at all times.
Okay, and then is your last note, number 7 there, where it states that the client had a health condition but provided no documentation or record. What are clients required to provide as far as documentation? Isn't that a HIPAA violation to require somebody to state what their medical condition is?
Your
I
Honor,
was just simply
Ms. Greiner, I just
Okay,
want
go
to
ahead.
make an objection. The complaint doesn't state specifically that the basis of the complaint is the failure for the clients to be wearing face masks. It's more so that the employees weren't wearing face masks.
Okay, so it's Mr. Wade. Would you like to respond to the objection before I make a ruling?
So this has nothing to do with clients, and is that what we're getting at? This is just an
I-
employee?
In,
um,
in essence, and I don't want to put any words in anybody's mouth, but it's really, I think is the objection.
Okay,
That is-
that's fine. That's fine.
Question?
I don't have anything else for her.
Okay. All right, any more questions?
No further question.
Okay. All right, actually, I have one question for Ms. Fanning. Were you aware that Mr. Scarapelli had spoken to Michelle in May during his inspection? Were you aware of that when you were doing your inspection in July?
Yes, I was aware that he went out there and that they weren't wearing masks.
Were you aware that that at that point she'd said she wasn't aware of the requirement of the mask requirement?
Can you repeat that? I'm not fully understanding the question.
So were you aware that I think Mr. Scarapelli had testified that Michelle had said, "Oh, I wasn't aware of this mask requirement." Were you aware that Michelle had told Mr. Scar that?
No, I had only seen the pictures and that they weren't following the COVID-19 guidelines.
Okay, does that lead to any further questions from either party for this witness for Ms. Fanning?
No, none on my part.
I just have one follow-up question on that. Would the knowledge of Mr. Scarpelli informing Michelle of the requirement of face mask, would that have changed your observations or inspection results on your inspection in July?
So I have been on some joint inspections with David Scarpelli, and I hear exactly what he tells people. He does have like a spiel, as he puts it. He says that we can't write a fine at this time, but that they need to wear their masks. And then for the customers, it is optional. But the employees have to wear masks. I've heard him say it to numerous salons.
But you didn't hear it at this salon, correct?
No, I did not for
Oh.
the salon.
But despite the fact that you didn't hear that or have knowledge of what Mr. Scarpelli would have told Michelle or anyone at Smoking Hot, that wouldn't have changed the outcome of your inspection, correct?
No,
Okay, thank you.
no.
No further questions.
Okay, Mr. Wade, last chance for any questions for this witness?
Yeah, I have one more question now. Michelle, you stated that you've heard David give his spiel, as he says, and he says that masks are required by employees, but not required by clients. Yet you just stated earlier in my questioning that the clients are required. So is David giving out wrong information now when he's giving this spiel?
The mandate changed in June. It was initially that all employees had to wear it and it was optional for clients. And then Sislac changed it to where everyone in a public place had to wear it.
Right, but you just said that David, on these joint inspections that you've done, you've heard him tell clients, tell him employees or owners or managers, were all of these joint inspections that you overheard, were they all prior to the second mandate then?
Yes.
Okay, I have nothing further.
All right. Okay, well, thank you very much for your testimony. So, Mr. Turk, any further witnesses for the board?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. All right, board rests. Mr. Wade, you're up.
So I just have, first thing I'd like to do, I do have a letter that was written by the client that was in the salon, the date of Michelle's inspection, if I could read that.
Yeah, first let me swear you in, please. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So it's dated October 17th, 2020. To whom it may.
Let me just stop you there. Is this, so this is a letter that you didn't provide the board?
No, we just received this letter.
Okay. And who is it from?
It is from a client that was in the chair when Michelle came in for her inspection. She was the client in that front station with the gentleman that was wearing his mask under his chin.
Okay, again, I'm sorry, what date is the letter?
The letter is dated October 17th, 2020.
Okay,
And Ms. Griner, just for the record, I'd like to object to that because we don't have any advance notice of this. And if he's trying to introduce it as an exhibit, he didn't. And we don't know, and a hearsay, I don't know who it's from.
Mr. Wade, do you want to respond to that?
No, that's fine. I mean, obviously, I'm not an attorney, so this is my first time doing this, but that's fine.
Well, I mean, I haven't on his objection. If you want to give a little more of an explanation about why you think it should come, that's fine. But
Well,
I
I mean,
can't
it's just
give
a letter. I mean, it can be considered hearsay, but, you know, I mean, I feel it just kind of gives a little bit of background on the visit that, you know, of Michelle's visit while she was there, just kind of her attitude that she put in her email that she didn't have, she wasn't yelling and that sort of thing, that she was acting in a professional manner. This just kind of attests to the opposite of that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you go ahead and read that in. Mr. Chook, you know, with all due respect, I understand your objection, but technical rules of evidence do not apply in these matters. I think, you know, whether or not the letter has a lot of weight in my ruling today, that will be determined later, but I'm going to go ahead and let you read that letter in.
All right, thank you. So dated October 17th, 2020, to whom it may concern, in reference to Smokin' Hot Hair Salon. I was in the salon the day your inspector came. She was very unprofessional. She did not introduce herself. She just started talking. I have epilepsy and get very anxious. Thank God my service dog wasn't with me. I am not good wearing a mask and get very anxious. I took it off. She never asked why. She was very loud and did not explain herself. I didn't know if she was an unhappy customer. Please do not penalize the salon for my mask. I also think you need to send the inspector for public relations training. Very rude, unprofessional, and unsure of herself. If you need me further, I can be reached at 702-373-9120, Patty Oncho, 742 Holt, Caliente, Nevada, 89008.
Okay, thank you.
And then just to kind of elaborate, I guess, on the whole situation, you know, we are a small salon. We're not, you know, corporate or anything like that, just a small family-owned business. We were under the impression that at the initial visit, when the first directive did come out, that it was a recommended directive to wear face masks, both employees, stylists, as well as clients. As far as the second one, yes, that is our fault for not enforcing the rules. My wife, Michelle, was in the back eating, which is an allowable time to not have a mask on. From what my understanding is, Jonathan, which was the gentleman in the front, he had moved his mask down after Michelle came in so that he could communicate with her better. I guess there was maybe a communication issue just with him having a mask on. The other female that was there, Frankie, was in the break room at the time that Michelle did come in and did not have a mask on, but she was in the back, not anywhere near clients. So all we ask is just a little, what's the word I'm looking for? A little leniency, I guess. We did struggle during this thing, just as everybody else has. You know, we've lost employees due to this because they couldn't afford to pay their rent and didn't feel comfortable, you know, coming back into a public setting, whether masks were being worn or not being worn. And we're just trying to survive.
Thank you. Do you have any other witnesses or evidence you want to present?
No, we don't have any witnesses.
Okay. Mr. Taruk, do you have any questions for Mr. Wade?
Yeah, Mr. Wade, just one question for you. Were you present during the inspection that Ms. Fanning performed?
No, sir, I wasn't there for either inspection.
Okay, so the testimony that you provided, who provided you that information?
That's my wife, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. No further questions.
I just have one question just based on Mr. Wade, what you just said. So essentially, you're admitting to these offenses, both of claims, or just the July 16th?
More so just the July 16th, excuse me, just based on like I said, we were under the impression that it was a recommendation also from when David did the inspection. That was the information that was relayed to my wife. So yes, I mean, we are admitting to the July 16th complaint in reference to just the masks. I know the initial complaints were for social distancing and double booking. And, you know, like I said, the stations had been moved since we reopened so that everybody was 6 feet apart and all that stuff. So other than the masks, we were all in compliance with all of the guidelines.
Okay. Any further witnesses or rebuttal witnesses or anything else?
No, Ms. Greiner.
Okay. Either one of you want to make a brief closing statement?
I'll just make a brief one. So the evidence that was just presented, Mr. Wade just testified that he admits to the July 16th infractions. The inspectors, Ms. Fanning, Ms. Adams, and Mr. Scarpelli testified that they did inform her or provide the information that the masks were requirements, and yet during the inspections, they were not followed, and the consumer complaints also back that up. So it's the board's position that the directives were not complied with by Smoking Hot Salon and that disciplinary action should be imposed.
Mr. Wade?
I do agree. The only thing that I would like to ask the court is that any disciplinary action is minimal due to, like I said, we are a small business slightly struggling through this pandemic with everybody else. And if it's a large fine, don't have the financial means to take care of that fine and could potentially no longer be in business, which in my opinion hurts the community, also hurts the board with losing a licensed establishment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both. Think you both have done a great job of presenting this case. I do find that the board, by preponderance of the evidence, that's the standard of review. The board did prove both the first claim for relief and the second claim for relief. Second one, of course, is stronger with Mr. Wade's own testimony. I think it's very important, though, to recognize that this is a small business and certainly everybody's struggling during COVID. I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and let the board make Mr. Taruk make a recommendation as far as the discipline. And then my understanding is it's the actual board that would approve any discipline.
That is correct. I would just like to call Ms. Leah Easter, who's a compliance coordinator, to just confirm what the board's position is on disciplinary action, if that's okay with Ms. Greiner.
That's fine.
But also to answer your question, yes, so the board ultimately will make the decision as far as what disciplinary action should be.
Okay. And I would enter a proposed finding of fact and recommendation, but that's subject to board approval, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And that's something that you would be preparing. Am I
Yeah,
correct about?
yeah.
Okay. All right.
Leah, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay. If you could present Ms. Greiner what the board's position is related to disciplinary action, please, or the recommended disciplinary action.
Sure. So when these matters were discussed with the executive team, which consists of myself, our executive director, deputy director, and chief financial officer, it was initially discussed that we would be asking for a 30 calendar day suspension in lieu of any sort of fine. The logic behind that was we feared that imposing a fine would encourage the businesses to double book, to overcrowd the salon, to make up whatever financial burden would be placed on us, placed on them by us imposing a fine. Of course, the board respects your recommendation and ultimately whatever the board decides, but we have asked for a 30-day suspension. Thank you.
And no fine, is that correct?
And costs, but no fine, correct.
Okay. Mr. Wade, I'd love to hear from you as far as what you think about something like that.
Well, I mean, I understand their stance as far as, she says that a fine would cause us or potentially have a salon double book to, to make up that cost. But 30-day suspension for us would be, devastating. I mean, obviously we're still responsible for paying our lease payment. We're still responsible for paying our power bill, our phone bill, all those
Right.
items that come along with running a business. Yet we would have zero income for that entire month, which would also affect our stylists that work there. Some that weren't even there either day of either inspection. We do have 4 stylists that, yes, they are independent contractors. We have 0 employees. Everybody does just pay a weekly rent to rent their booth station.
Okay.
So it would affect essentially 5 homes to shut us down for 30 days, which would be even more devastating, than a small, reasonable fine. And as both Michelle and David both stated, both at time of both of their inspections, there was 0 double booking, there was 0 social distancing being violated. So we've kind of shown that we're not there to just pile in as many people as we can to make the money. We knew this hearing was coming. We could have done that over the last month and a half that we've known about this to prepare ourselves for a fine, and we didn't do that. So I just asked that obviously we would highly ask that we don't get a 30-day suspension.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. True, is there anything else you want to say?
No, Your Honor, Ms. Greiner, I just wanted to refer you to NRS 644A.850 subsection 2, which are just the potential avenues for disciplinary action. So if you would, just for your reference, I guess, if you want to recommend the suspension.
Yeah, I know I'm authorized to do that under the NRS 644A.8.0 subsection 2. But I'm looking at subsection D, which says impose, I'm certainly authorized to impose a fine not to exceed $2,000. But that doesn't mean that I can, I can go that high. I mean, I can go up to 2,000, but I think reasonable to go well below that under these circumstances. I think he's been honest and truthful, and it's hard times. So well, before I make a decision on the fine amount, I'm not going to suspend the license. It's not fair to the other employees, I think. But as far as the costs go, is there anybody from the board who can give kind of a rough estimate about how much that'll be?
Earlier, Ms. Easter provided me a rough estimate of, I guess, through September. The attorney's fees and costs totaled about $825.
Okay.
But that doesn't include today or the preparation leading up to the hearing today.
Okay, so maybe you want to take a stab at how much that would be?
Let's see. I would estimate, a rough estimate, would be about 4 hours. But then again, also if we're preparing the decision order and findings of fact, I don't know how long that would take as well. So, but currently through today, it's about an additional 4 or 5 hours of attorney time.
What's the hourly rate at that?
It's about $154 and some change, but I don't know what the change is.
All right. Okay. Mr. Wade, anything else you want to say?
And Ms. Greiner, sorry, before you ask Mr. Wade anything, I'd just like to ask one more thing. Because you found a preponderance of the proving of both claims 1 and 2, I'd ask that separate fines be issued on both of those.
Okay. All right. Mr. Wade?
No, I have nothing to add.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, my recommendation to the board is going to be a $500 fine for each of the counts. And then that'll be in addition to the costs and fees. The board will, Mr. Truitt, I believe, or somebody else from the board will have to provide, with an item So that'll be my record. I believe that Mr. Truitt will be preparing that, and I'll review that, and then it'll go to the board. Not sure exactly how the timeline is once it goes in front of the board. Maybe somebody from the board can explain a little bit more about that timeline.
Sure, this is Leah Easter, Chief Compliance Officer with the board. So for Mr. and Mrs. Wade, once this is put into writing, it would need to get essentially the blessing by the full 7-member board. Should the board has the ability to accept, reject, or modify Ms. Greiner's decision, but once a decision is made, the documents and everything would become essentially, everything would be in effect. You would get a copy of everything. You're also welcome to come to that board hearing where they review the findings from today. And then normally be able to set you up with some sort of payment plan should you be so willing to want to go that route.
Okay, and is there a possibility, like if he needs extra time to pay? Is that something?
Yeah. Yeah, the board's been very flexible with payment plans and whatnot. So I'm sure we could work out something that would be agreeable to all parties.
Okay. All right. Very good. Anything from either party? Anything else?
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
My only question is, I can't remember her name. I apologize. The Chief Compliance, Leah.
Yes.
How, I don't know if you can answer this, but how likely are they to accept Mrs. Greiner's recommendation? Are these things that generally get accepted, or are they often modified and increased?
So to be honest with you, the board used to hear these cases directly, so they would come up with the decision themselves. This will be the first, you'll be the first case that ever came from an ALJ for them to review. So there's no precedent really. I presume that they would respect the decision of Ms. Greiner, but I don't know for sure because they would have the ability to, I guess, make a decision one way or another. But you will get notice of the meeting as well. I believe it's set for January 11th. And you can of course be present and add whatever you like at that meeting as well.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody. And that concludes the hearing. We'll move on to the next one.
Ms. Greiner, can we take a 5-minute break? I just have to use the restroom real quick.
Sure. Before we, just a question, is this one, are parties present for that as well?
I'm not sure. There's a caller by the name of Abigail that I see on the call list, on the participant list, but I'm not sure if she's on there. She's the only name that I don't.
We also have a Jennifer on the list.
Oh, great.
Is anyone here on behalf of, is it Reflection Salon? You might be on mute if you're trying to say anything.
Yes.
Okay. And is your
Okay.
first name Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay, and you're here on behalf of Reflections?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer, are you prepared to go forward with the hearing this morning?
Yes.
Okay. All right. 5-minute break.
What's that?
Thanks. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We just finished up our first hearing, and we'll get to you in 5 minutes. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
So anyway, so if you can get me the date that the letters were, the emails were sent out.
Everybody ready?
I think so.
Yes.
All right. Next matter is Nevada State Board of Cosmetology versus Jennifer June Frazier and Reflection Styling Salon. It's case number C2020-0970. Again, it's October 22nd, the year's 2020, 11 o'clock a.m. My name is Jill Greiner, and I'm the hearing officer in this matter. This is the date and time set for a hearing. So will the parties present, we assume, make their appearances, please?
Justin Taruk, Deputy Attorney General, on behalf of the Executive Director Gary Landry of the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology. Also on the call today is Leah Easter, Compliance Coordinator, David Scarpelli, Inspector, Aaron Littler, Inspector, Lisa Nguyen, Maggie Adams, Michelle Fanning, and Randy Moore, who are all employees of the State Board of Nevada.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
Okay. And see me as well?
Yeah, I don't hear very good. I'm half deaf, so I might have might need to repeat things to me.
No problem. Okay. Are you prepared to go forward with the hearing this morning? My understanding is that you were served with this complaint and notice of hearing. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you're prepared to go, you're ready to go forward with the hearing,
Yes.
representing yourself, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Any preliminary matters from either party, exhibits or witnesses or anything that you want to address before we start the hearing?
Yes, Ms. Greiner, I just also wanted to confirm that for the record that Ms. Frazier will also, whether or not Ms. Frazier will also be participating in this matter on behalf of Reflection Styling Salon.
Yeah, I'm here.
Did you hear the question?
No.
Are you participating on behalf of Reflection Salon as well?
Yes.
Okay. Are you owner of Reflections?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Okay, and Ms. Greiner, back to your question about preliminary matters. attached to the complaint and notice of hearing that was sent to respondents were 6 exhibits that we would like to admit into the record at this time.
Okay. Ms. Frazier, are you aware of those exhibits that he's referencing? Mr.
Yes.
Taruk? Okay. Do you have any objection to admitting that the record at this point?
No. I'm
Was that enough?
just on. No, that's fine.
Okay, so exhibits 1 through 6 will be admitted. All right. You want to make brief opening statements?
Yes, if I could, just a really brief one. This case, the board is willing to, will be proving that during the COVID shutdown, Ms. Frazier and Reflection Salon was advertising or indicating that they would be taking clients despite the shutdown and the directive. And in addition, the evidence is going to show that Ms. Frazier and Reflection Salon's employees failed to comply with the governor's directives regarding facial coverings and facial masks.
Ms. Frazier, anything you want to say before we get started with the actual hearing with witnesses?
I would say that I did close my business down during that time, and I did shut my business down. I wasn't open during the COVID pandemic. Did that.
I can hear you, Ms. Frazier. I'm not sure if we lost Ms. Greiner.
Okay.
Her screen is frozen on my end. Is she frozen on your end as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll see if she logs off and logs back in.
Oh, there she goes.
Yep, she's probably just gonna reconnect.
Okay, well, I guess we're back. Ms. Frazier, did we lose her?
No.
Okay, all right. I'm not sure what just happened, but I guess as you were saying, that you did close your business.
Yes, I did.
Okay, all right. Mr. Taruk, would you like to call your first witness?
Yes, please. I'd like to call Maggie Adams.
Okay.
Or actually, Ms. Greiner, before we continue, just like the previous one, I'm not sure if you wanted to ask the parties if you wanted to exclude witnesses during testimony, but the board's not, we don't mind if the witnesses are all on during testimony.
Okay, Ms. Frazier, do you understand what we of your last hearing? But I did ask the respondent if they wanted to have the witnesses who aren't testifying excluded so they don't hear the testimony of each other. In other words, so they're not influenced by there's testimony.
It doesn't matter. I'm okay.
Yeah, and based on the last hearing I heard that, yeah, I believe that, I think everybody was testifying independently. I didn't see it as a potential problem, so I'm just going to let everybody listen in, and if there is a problem at some point, we can address it at that point. So,
Okay, at this time, I'd like to call Maggie Adams as my first witness, please.
Maggie Adams is present.
Ms. Adams, you were previously sworn in the last hearing, so just remember you're still under oath.
I remember.
Thanks.
Ms. Adams, can you state your name for the record, please?
My name is Maggie Adams.
And are you currently employed with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology?
Yes, I am.
All right, and what is your job title with the board?
Specialist.
Okay, and how long have you had that position?
Almost 2 years.
Have you always been a compliance specialist throughout the almost 2 years with the board?
Correct. Yes, I have been.
Okay, and what are some of your general job duties as a compliance specialist?
Generally, I receive and log complaints. I process them, process complaint inspection reports, and other duties.
Did you review the notice and complaint against Reflections, Jennifer June Frazier and Reflections Styling Salon in this matter?
Yes, I did.
Okay. To your understanding, what is the basis of the complaint against the respondents?
That they advertised they were open during shutdown, the state mandated shutdown of non-essential businesses, and that subsequently licensees were not wearing face masks.
Okay. The first respondent that we have listed is Jennifer June Frazier. Are you aware of Ms. Frazier?
Yes, I am.
Okay, how do you know Ms. Frazier?
She's licensed by the State Board of Cosmetology.
Okay, what type of license does Ms. Frazier have with the board?
She has a cosmetology license.
Okay, and what's the cosmetology license number that was issued to her?
It is C3676.
Okay. Do you recall when Ms. Frazier first obtained her license with the board?
July 12th, 2011.
Okay. Since that time that she first got her initial license, has she always had an active license with the board?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. And the second respondent we have today in this matter is Reflections Styling Salon. Are you familiar with Reflections?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and how are you familiar with Reflections?
It is one of our licensed cosmetology establishments.
Okay, and do you, so it holds a salon cosmetology establishment license, is that correct?
Yeah, it's a full service salon, so it can do hair, skin, and nails.
Okay, and what license number was issued to Reflections?
S-14465.
And do you know when Reflections was first issued that license?
February 25th of 2015.
And since February 25th of 2015, has Reflections always had an active license with the board?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay. If we could turn to Exhibit 1, do you have a copy of the packet of exhibits?
Yes, I do.
Okay. If you could turn to Exhibit 1, please.
I have it.
All right. First foundation question is, are you aware that Governor Sisolak issued a declaration of emergency due to the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So can you tell me what Exhibit 1 is?
It is the Declaration of Emergency for COVID-19 Directive 003.
Okay, if we could turn to page 2 of that document, I want you to look and focus on section 2.
Okay.
Could you read that into the record for me, please?
Section 2 says non-essential businesses that promote extended periods of public interaction where the risk of transmission is high, including fitness establishments such as gyms and studios, aesthetic services such as beauty shops, barber shops, nail salons, tanning salons, and wax salons, and any other such non-essential business shall close effective March 20th, 2020 at 11:59 p.m. for the duration that this directive shall be in effect.
Okay. Did you ever receive or review a consumer complaint regarding Ms. Frazier or Reflections Salon?
Yes, I have.
And was the consumer complaint received, was it complaining of actions that occurred during the shutdown or effective date of March 20, 2020?
Yes, I received a complaint on April 28th of 2020 saying that the salon was open and that Ms. Fraser was posting about it on social media.
Okay. Did you investigate that complaint?
I did.
And how did you investigate that complaint?
I went on to Facebook on April 28th and searched Ms. Fraser's name. I found her homepage and then I found the post.
Okay. If we could turn to Exhibit 2, please.
Certainly. I have it.
Okay. Could you tell me what Exhibit 2 is?
It is a screenshot of the post that I found on April 28th.
Okay. Could you read into the record for me the first bubble that says Jennifer June Fraser?
Yes, it says Jennifer Johnson. Yes, ma'am. I am for personal appointments only so that I can be sure things are in order.
Okay. And it says 5D. Do you know what that means?
It's 5 days ago,
Okay. And you went on to Facebook and found this when again?
April 28th.
Okay. So it was after March 2020, correct?
Would have been approximately April 23rd.
Okay. Now, if you could read 2 bubbles down, there's another statement that was made by Jennifer June Fraser that says awesome with
Yes.
3 exclamation points. Could you read that into the record for me, please?
It says, awesome. I support you. I'm still working as well. Stand Up Nevada. I own Reflection Styling Salon. Hell yeah.
And what is the date stamp on that, if you could see?
That is also 5 days prior to when I copied it.
And that would be again, what date?
It would be April 23rd,
2020.
2020, yes.
Okay. I have no further questions of Miss Adams.
Ms. Fraser, do you have any questions for Ms. Adams?
No. I don't have any
All right.
questions. But I don't have any recollection of these messages.
Okay, all right. You'll certainly have your opportunity to testify and make your statements, but I guess we'll move to the next witness then if both parties are done with Ms. Adams. Thank you very much, Ms. Adams.
Next, I'd like to call David Scarpelli as a witness, please.
Thank
Right
you.
here.
All right, reminding you as well that you're still under oath.
All right, David, can you, similar as last time, could you just state your name for the record and spell your last name, please?
Yes, it's David Scarpelli. It's Scarpelli.
Thank you. Are you currently employed with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology?
Yes,
And what is your job title there?
inspector.
Okay, how long have you been an inspector with the board?
Almost 5 years.
Since for the almost 5 years that you've been with the board, have you always been an inspector?
Yes,
Okay. Are you aware that Governor Sisolak issued several emergency directives related to the COVID-19 pandemic?
yes,
Okay, have you reviewed them prior to today?
yes,
Okay, do you have a copy of the 6 exhibits that were previously admitted in this matter?
yes, I do.
Okay, if I could have you turn to Exhibit 3, please.
Okay.
Okay, could you tell me what this document is or what you believe this document is?
This is the Declaration of Emergency Directive 018 or 18.
Okay, if we could turn to page 5 of the document, I want to direct you to section 16 of the Directive 018.
Okay.
Okay, could you read for me that first blurb that starts with section 7 of Directive 13 and just end at the word that?
Section 7 of Directive 13 is hereby rescinded. Effective May 9th, 2020, nail care salons, hair salons, and barbershops licensed by the Nevada Board of Cosmetology or State Barbers Health and Sanitation Board may reopen to customers provided that
And then if you could read point 5 on that section.
technicians, stylists, barbers, and other employees must wear face coverings at all times.
Thank you. Could you also read bullet point number 6 on that one for me as well, please?
Yep. Persons licensed by the Nevada Board of Cosmetology or State Barbers Health and Sanitation Board must abide by all guidelines promulgated by the respective boards. Boards are directed to impose disciplinary measures against licensees who violate this provision. Persons licensed by the Nevada Board of Cosmetology or State Barbers Health and Sanitation Board may perform in-home beauty services.
Oh, that's fine.
Person-
Sorry.
Okay.
Thanks. And then if we could turn to Exhibit 4, you put Exhibit 3 to the side now. Let's turn to Exhibit 4. Got it?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I got it.
Could you tell me what this document is, to your understanding?
This is the roadmap to recovery for Nevada hair care salons guidelines.
Do you see the word where it says mandatory towards the middle of the page?
Yes.
Okay, and then on the left side, it says infection prevention item checklist. Do you see that?
Yes.
All right. If you look at the bullet point right next to that, do you see the phrase face masks included in the infection prevention item checklist?
Yes.
Okay. As an inspector of the board, have you received any training related to the governor's directives and or the guidelines that we just went over?
Yes.
Okay. What type of training did you receive?
We review the governor's directives through meetings with the Board of Cosmetology, I guess, chief compliance officer, compliance specialist, and all other inspectors.
How often would you hold those meetings?
The trainings are done every 2 weeks.
Okay. Would you receive training as soon as a new directive came out that affected the cosmetology board?
Yeah, if it affected, we would have training immediately, but otherwise it was every 2 weeks that we would discuss these
Okay.
directives.
To your understanding, based off of your reading of the guidelines and the directives and the training that you received, what does section 16 of directive 18 mean with regards to wearing a face mask?
Face coverings must be worn at all times.
By all employees of cosmetology establishments, correct?
Yes, yeah, by the employees.
Are you familiar with Jennifer June Frazier?
Yes.
Okay, and how are you familiar with Ms. Frazier?
She is the owner of Reflections Styling Salon.
So in that regard, you're also familiar with Reflections Styling Salon, correct?
Yes, I am. They're a licensed establishment with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology.
Okay. Did you ever perform an inspection of Reflections Styling Salon after March 20 of 2020?
Yes.
Okay. When did you perform that inspection?
May 14th, 2020.
Okay. As an inspector, how are you generally assigned inspection or salons to inspect?
Inspectors are normally given routes by the office staff that consists of lists of salons that are located in a particular area of Nevada based on zip codes. And in this situation, this zip code is taken over by Rodney Inspector Moore. And I went with him to this zip code or Elko to perform inspections along with him.
Okay. Was your May 14th, 2020 inspection based off of a consumer complaint that was received by the State Board of Nevada?
No,
Okay. So it was a routine inspection?
it was a routine on May 14th. It was a routine.
Okay. Could you tell me what you noticed during your inspection on May 14th?
What was noticed, there were 2 employees licensed individuals that weren't wearing masks at that time during the inspection, and no citations were issued.
Okay. Do you have Exhibit 5 in front of you?
Yes, yeah, I got it.
If we could look at that, it says David Scarpelli, and then it says david@nvcosmo.com. Is that your email address?
Yes,
Okay. Did you draft this document?
yes,
Okay, and it seems like there's a date stamp of May 14th, 2020. Is that approximately when you drafted this document?
yes.
Okay. Was this document drafted by you after your inspection?
It was drafted after the inspection that was performed, probably about 5 minutes after.
Okay. Could you read to me what you wrote to Maggie Adams, please?
Yeah, it's reflection S-14465, licensees not wearing face masks. David.
Okay. And I'm sorry, did you state how many employees or licensees were not wearing face masks at this time of your
I
inspection?
did not state it in the email. I just
Okay.
said licensees.
Do you recall how many licensees at that time were not wearing face masks?
2.
And it seems like there's 2 attachments that were part of your email. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you tell me what the first photograph is?
The first photograph is of licensee performing a hair service. I think that's the one I'm looking at here. The first one that's blown up, the one I'm looking at, is the licensee that's performing a hair service or a cosmetology service.
Okay, and the photograph, just for the record, the verbal record, the photograph you're looking at, does it appear that the licensee is wearing, does she have a ponytail?
She has a ponytail, yes.
Okay, and it looks like she's wrapping something around the client's neck. Is that the photograph you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. When did you take this photograph?
May 14th, 2020.
Was this during your inspection?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know the identity of the woman who looks like she's performing the cosmetology service?
I believe that was Jennifer.
Okay, Miss Frazier, correct?
Yes, Miss Frazier, sorry.
When you went in for your inspection on May 14th, did you announce yourself that you were an inspector of the board?
Yes, if I didn't do it, Rodney may have done it. We did this inspection together, so one of us would have introduced ourselves.
Okay, and just to back up, Miss Frazier, at the time of your inspection on May 14th, it looked like she was an employee or working at the salon, correct?
Yes, yes.
Now, if you flip the page to the second blown up photograph, did you take this photograph as well?
Yes.
Okay, and where was this photograph taken?
Where was this taken? Is that?
Yeah.
This was taken in the salon, the Reflections salon. It's towards the back of the salon where the nail station is located.
Okay, was this section open to the public
Yes,
where the individuals were standing?
yes. It's
Okay.
open to the public, yes.
Do you know the 2 individuals or the identity of the 2 individuals in this photograph?
I do not know I know the individual to the right was a licensee, and the one on the left, I believe, was a client, but I'm not 100% sure who the person was on the left. It was a client or an employee. I wasn't 100% sure.
But for sure, the one on the right was another employee or licensee that was
Yes.
working at Reflections, correct?
Yes.
Okay. On your May 14th, 2020 inspection, oh, sorry, I already asked that. You said there was 2 employees who weren't wearing masks at that time, correct?
Yeah, the employees. There were clients, but at the time, the clients, it was just a suggestion that they wore the face coverings.
Did it appear to you that Ms. Frazier or any employee from Reflections had a face covering on them at the time of your inspection on May 14th?
I don't remember seeing one, but I don't think they did.
Okay. Upon the conclusion of your inspection on May 14th, did you have any conversations with anybody from Reflections or Ms. Frazier about the directives requiring face coverings for employees?
Yes.
And who
Yes.
did you have that conversation with?
I trying to remember if I believe it was with Jennifer, but it might have been Rodney that had the conversation, but one of us had the conversation
Okay.
while we were there.
Um, do you recall what the substance of that discussion was with Ms. Frazier?
Just that employees, licensees, people working in that salon must wear face coverings or face masks.
Okay. After the May 14th, 2020 inspection at Reflections, did you perform any other inspections on Reflections?
No, I did not.
No further questions for Mr. Scarpelli at this time.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier, do you have any questions for Mr. Scarpelli?
No.
No? Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Scarpelli.
Thank
Next
you.
witness.
The last witness that I would like to call on this matter is Mr. Rodney Moore.
Hello.
Hello. All right. Good afternoon, or it's late morning. I'm going to go ahead and swear you in. Can you please raise your right hand? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right.
Good morning, Mr. Moore. Could you state your name for the record, please?
Rodney Moore.
Okay. And are you currently employed with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology?
Yes.
Okay. How long have you been employed with the board?
6 years.
And what is your job title?
Inspector.
Have you been an inspector for the board for the full 6 years that you've been employed with them?
Yes.
Okay. What are some of the job duties that you hold as an inspector of the board?
To inspect salons for compliance reviews and ensuring the guidance with the making sure that everybody is following the governor's laws.
Okay. Are you aware that Governor Sisolak issued several emergency directives related to COVID-19 and the pandemic?
Yes.
All right. Have you reviewed the directives that we previously talked about with the other inspectors and Ms. Adams?
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall when you reviewed those?
When did I review them?
Was it when they were issued?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Have you ever received any training regarding the board's position on those directives and when it would be a violation under those directives?
Yes.
Okay. What type of training did you receive?
Well, we go through meetings every 2 weeks with our compliance coordinators and inspection team, and we go over all the directives at that time.
Okay. And you said it was every 2 weeks, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. To your understanding as an inspector and going through all the training that you received with the compliance team, what is your understanding of what Section 16 of Directive 18 means with regards to wearing face masks?
That all employees must wear face coverings at all times.
Okay. Are you familiar with Ms. Frazier?
Yes.
How are you familiar with her?
She's a licensee with the Nevada State Board of Cosmetology.
Okay. And are you also familiar with Reflection Styling Salon?
Yes.
And how are you familiar with that establishment?
With inspections and compliance reviews.
Okay. So is it your understanding that Reflection Styling Salon is a licensed salon under the state board?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you ever perform an inspection of Reflection Styling Salon after March 20 of 2020?
Yes.
Okay. Just a step back, how are you assigned generally to inspections?
We're assigned inspections with the compliance coordinators through zip codes.
And Reflections was just one of the salons that was located in your zip code area?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you recall the first time you performed an inspection on Reflections after March 20th of 2020?
On March 24th, yes, David and I attended this.
March 24th was the first time, or was it a different date?
March 20th, March 24th, David and I did an inspection on reflections. And then I did another one on March 5th. I mean, not March 5th, I'm sorry, June 5th, 2020.
Okay, did you perform an inspection on May 14th, 2020?
Yes, with David Scapelli.
Okay, so there's just a little mix up on the dates, though. It was May 14th that you had the inspection with Mr. Scarpelli, or what?
Yes, sir.
Okay, was that complaint or that inspection based off of a consumer complaint?
No, sir, that was a routine inspection.
Okay. Mr. Scarpelli, you heard testify that he took photographs. Did you take any photographs during the inspection?
Not on March 14th, no, sir.
Mr. Moore, you keep referring to March 14th. Do you mean May 14th?
No, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry. Not on March. I mean, not on the 24th. No, sir, I didn't.
On the, okay.
May.
May 14th?
Yes, I didn't take any pictures. No, sir.
Okay. Did you speak to anybody during that inspection that Mr. Scarpelli and you went on in Reflections on May 14th?
Yes, I did.
Who did you
Yes, I
speak to?
did. I spoke with Miss Frazier.
Okay. And what did you talk to her about?
I discussed with Miss Frazier that wearing face coverings was very important in order for us to stay open and to protect ourselves and the public.
Did you tell her it was required under the directive to wear the face coverings?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Did she give any pushback, or what was her response to that?
No pushback at all, sir. She said that she would follow the directives.
Okay. So it seemed like she understood that the directive required face coverings, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Moore, do you have a copy of the 6 exhibits that we've been talking about in this case?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you could find exhibit 6 for me, I'd like to talk to you about that one.
Okay. I have it, sir.
Okay.
Yes, I have it.
Okay, awesome. It says Rodney Moore, and then it has a bracket, rodney@nbcosmo.com end bracket. Is that your email address?
Yes.
Okay, and it says to Maggie Adams at maggie@nbcosmo.com. That's Maggie Adams that I was talking with, the compliance specialist. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you read for me about the first 3 lines and then end on May 24th, 2020?
Yes. Reflection Salon S14465 was visited by David and I on May 14th, 2020. During the routine inspection, the owner wasn't wearing a mask. She tried putting on the mask once the inspections were identified. She was then educated on the importance of practicing social distancing, wearing masks.
Okay, thank you. And so that kind of just summarized what you said, which is what you discussed with Miss Frazier, that the directives required a mask. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Could you read the next line of Exhibit 6, please? The one that just on May 24th, 2020.
Yes. On May 24th, 2020, another complaint was filed on Reflection Salon for not practicing social distancing, not wearing masks.
Okay, and then if you could read the next sentence for me, please.
I tried calling the number on file to follow up, but no answer.
Okay. Did you personally read that May 24th, 2020 complaint that was filed against Reflections?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And is that what prompted you to try calling up the phone with no response?
That is correct.
Okay. Do you recall when you tried calling them up?
No, sir, I don't have the exact date, but it was after the complaint was filed.
Okay. And what was
excuse me.
What was the purpose of you calling or trying to call them?
I wanted to get in touch with Miss Frazier because David and I had just left Elko, and I just wanted to assure to her that we had an understanding that we had to follow the governor's directives.
Okay. Could you read the next line then? That starts with on July 17th, 2020.
On July 17, 2020, another complaint was filed on Reflection Salon for not social distancing, not wearing masks. I then traveled to Elko to Reflection Salon, still not practicing social distancing, not wearing masks. Not only was the owner or her staff not wearing masks, but their guest was not practicing social distancing. See attachments.
Okay. And so based off of this, do you recall performing another inspection after your May 14th inspection?
Yes, sir, I do.
And when was that?
I actually went there on the date of July 5th, 2020
Okay.
to follow up on a complaint that was filed on the follow up on the previous complaint to find that Miss Frazier wasn't wearing a mask. No, she actually had a mask on at that time.
Okay, so she was in compliance on that date. Did you have another inspection after that one?
Yes, sir, I did.
When was that?
That was on July 21st, 2020.
Okay. Did you go by yourself on the July 21st, 2020 inspection?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And was that inspection based off of that July 17th, 2020 complaint?
That is correct.
Okay. What did you observe during your July 21st, 2020 inspection?
I noticed that Miss Frazier and another staff and their guests wasn't wearing face coverings.
Okay. There are 3 photographs that are attached to Exhibit 6. Do you see those?
Yes.
Okay, did you take these photographs?
Yes, I did.
And when did you take the photographs?
July 21st, 2020.
So it was during your inspection on that date?
Yes.
Okay. Did you talk to anyone on July 21st, 2020 regarding the lack of use of face masks?
Yes.
And who did you speak with?
I spoke again with Miss Frazier.
Okay, and what did you talk to her about this time?
This time I explained to Miss Frazier that she's violated the rules so many times that I was going to turn her over to my compliance coordinators and that she would probably be getting a letter or something in the mail stating that she's not in compliance and that she might be cited or something.
Okay. Did she try to put on a face mask once she knew that you were an inspector, or did she, oh, strike that. Did you introduce yourself as an inspector on July 21st, 2020?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. Did she attempt to try to put on a face mask or any of her employees when you introduced yourself as the inspector?
Not at this time.
Okay. Going back to the 3 photographs. So the first one, it looks like, I'm going to direct you, is the one where, this one, if you could see on my screen.
Are you on Exhibit 6 still?
Exhibit 6 is the first photograph behind Exhibit 6.
Thank you.
I have it here.
Okay, can you tell me what that depicts?
This shows that Miss Frazier and another employee and their guests sitting in the lobby, sitting there, are not wearing face protection.
Okay, and then if you could flip the page to the second photograph still attached to Exhibit 6, what is that photograph depict?
This picture is the second employee working in the salon, retrieving herself to the bathroom to put on a mask.
Okay, and then the third photograph, what is that of?
This is a picture of the lobby and the lady sitting at the nail station, all not wearing face coverings.
Okay, so during your inspection on July 21, when you first walked in, there was nobody wearing face masks, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. I have no further questions of Mr. Moore at this time.
Ms. Frazier, do you have any questions for Mr. Moore?
No.
Is that a no?
Yeah, that's a no.
Okay, does the board have any other witnesses?
None at this time, Ms. Frazier.
Okay.
Ms. Griner, we rest our case.
Okay, all right. Ms. Frazier, is there anything you'd like to say or any evidence you want to present? It's your turn.
I did want to say during the very first inspection of May 14th, that was really confusing time. And I was under the impression that it was a suggested for everyone, a suggestion for everyone to wear face masks. I didn't know that we were all supposed to wear them at first. So, and yeah, I guess, you know, I don't want you to think that I'm not wearing it to, you know, be ornery or anything, because I really do try to wear the cloth masks. The cloth masks are very hard for me to wear during this time. We didn't have any air conditioning. It was summer and it was really hot in there. I'm curious though, because under the mandate of the governor, he also put in there stipulations for people with different medical conditions that should be exempt from wearing masks.
And is it your belief that you would fall within these exemptions?
Yes.
Can you be specific about which ones?
Well, I am deaf in my right ear. I rely a lot on being able to talk to people and see their faces to be able to hear them. I have issues with wearing the cloth masks at first because it constricted my breathing. I suffered a traumatic brain injury a few years back, and I have nerve damage in my right side of my head. That makes it to where it's hard for me to breathe sometimes. So in the last inspection where there were people in the salon, I don't let people in the shop at a whole bunch at a time. The only reason why there were people in there was because they all lived in the same household and they were all in there together. I thought that people in the same household don't have to practice social distancing like everyone else. Isn't that correct?
Let me just refocus you. The issue here is, well, there are three claims against you. The first one being open as during the time frame when businesses were supposed to, non-essential businesses were supposed to be closed, and the other two was regarding face masks for employees. So I think you're, you know, it sounds like you're talking about customers, and I just want to focus on employees here. Okay.
Okay. During the shutdown, I did shut my business down. I know that I put a lot of things on social media that I shouldn't have. And I was helping with the fight for Nevada for recalling. And my business was very spied on a lot. And I'm pretty sure that's probably why a lot of the complaints came in. Those messages you found on Facebook, I don't remember any of those. I'm pretty sure I wrote them late at night. So I don't remember those. But I can say that I wasn't open. Once we were able to do curbside stuff, I did try to sell products out the door. At this time, I was also advertising that people could come down and sign the petition outside.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Ms. Griner, if I may, if she's done.
Ms. Frazier, are you done?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Taruk.
I'd like to, Ms. Frazier, are you aware, have you read Directive 024 by the governor that was issued on June 24th of 2020?
I'm not sure. I've probably read it.
Okay. Earlier you testified that you believe that you were exempt from wearing a face covering. Is that your testimony?
Well, I thought that, yeah, honestly, I thought that I was kind of exempt, but
okay. If you hadn't read Directive 024, if you could, Section 7, Paragraph 3 on there, I'd like to read that to you and see what you understand this to be. It says, quote, individuals who cannot wear a face covering due to a medical condition or disability, or who are unable to remove a mask without assistance. Persons exempted under this provision should wear a non-restrictive alternative, such as a face shield. Persons exempted under this provision shall not be required to produce documentations verifying the condition. Are you aware then that even though if you could not wear a face mask, that you had to wear a less restrictive protective covering, such as a face shield?
yes, at that time, those were really hard to get. And since then, I do wear that now, and I have ever since.
No further questions for you. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Any further testimony, evidence that either party wants to introduce before we wrap this case up?
Nope.
Okay. Either party want to make a very brief closing statement?
I'll make a brief statement. The evidence shows that Ms. Frazier was advertising on Facebook that she was open and taking clients, despite what she says. There's documentary evidence of that. There's also evidence and proof from the inspectors and their notes and photographs showing that face masks were not being used or utilized either by employees or their patrons during the time that the governor's directives were in place. So we asked for disciplinary action based off of that.
Thank you, Ms. Frazier. Anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Okay, I'm held up on that first claim for relief. As I look at it, I'll read it. Paragraphs 1 through 20 are incorporated. Respondents are subject to discipline, et cetera, by failing to comply with the declaration of emergency for COVID-19 Directive 003 when respondents continue to service clients amid the closure of non-essential businesses. The problem I have with that is there's no date. Mr. Taruk, maybe you can address that. I'm very uncomfortable with finding somebody guilty of an offense without an actual date specified in the complaint.
Oh, sure. Well, Ms. Adams testified earlier, and the Directive 003 was dated March 20th of 2020. That was issued for the closure of non-essential businesses.
Right.
Ms. Adams testified that on April 28th, she went on Facebook and noted that those were the three, noted the Facebook and saw the statements, and it was date posted 5 days ago. So that would have made it April 23rd, which is after March 20th of 2020.
Okay, yeah, and I understand what you're saying, but the complaint itself doesn't say the date that she was open. I think, my concern, of course, always is due process. And if there's no date in the actual complaint, how can she defend herself? The other problem I see is also just a Facebook post. I don't think that was, in my mind, that's insufficient evidence to find that this claim, the first claim was proved by preponderance of the evidence. But I do find the second and third claims were proved by preponderance of the evidence as far as recommendations for discipline. I'll let the board go. Why don't you go ahead and state your recommendations?
Okay, I'd like to ask Ms. Leah Easter, Compliance Coordinator, to state the recommendation of the board.
Sure. Just like with the last matter, the executive director, deputy director, myself, and our CFO had initially discussed a 30-day suspension based on the idea that levying any type of fine would just encourage the salons to be overcrowded, you know, and just pack more people in to try to make up whatever money we were to fine them. But of course, like with the last case, we respect whatever decision you make, and we'll bring whatever you decide before our board.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier, based on that, what's your situation if you were, can you hear me, Ms.
Yes,
Frazier? Okay. All right. Just want to make sure the internet's working. Would that be a hardship, the 30-day suspension, or would a fine be more of a suspension, be more of a hardship? Where are you on that?
Well, at this point, I think, you know, all of it would be a hardship, but I'm willing to, you know, accept what you guys give me. And I am a very small business.
If you do close, would that I'm assuming that would affect some of your employees. Am I right about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As far as a fine goes, is that something you'd be able to do over a time period?
I could. Is there a possible that we could do maybe a partial shutdown and a partial fine too? I mean,
Well, you know, the end decision is up to the board. I'm just going to make a recommendation, but maybe Mr. or I don't know if the board reps today have any suggestions about the best way to do this. As of course, you know, I don't think the board's out to you know, to close you down.
right.
Sure. This is Leah Easter, Chief Compliance Officer. So if you decide that levying a fine is the best course of action in this case, we can certainly work on a payment plan with Ms. Frazier so that it would be, you know, kind of bite-sized increments. So it's not all due at one time. And again, if she thinks it's less burdensome and you find it to be equally fair to have a part shutdown, part fine, we're okay with doing that too. We would still be able to have the portion that's a fine be paid in smaller increments.
And I'm assuming the board's also asking for costs as well.
That's correct. And I believe the fees so far from our counsel, Mr. Taruk, are around $1,119.
Okay.
That's from, I believe, July through September. So not counting his time for today and any other preparation in the last few days.
Okay. Mr. Taruk, is there anything else you want to add?
No, Ms. Greiner, I just wanted to refer you again to NRS 644A-850, where you can impose the board can issue suspension, revocation, a fine, or a combination of.
Thank you. Thank you. Ms. Frazier, anything, you get the last word. Anything else you want to say?
I'm sorry that this happened, and I wish it didn't.
Okay, well, hopefully it sounds like the board's willing to work with you. As far as a shutdown goes, when you say partial shutdown, what did you have in mind?
So if they want to shut me down for 30 days, what if they shut me down for half that and I do the other half?
Okay. What I'm gonna do is recommend a 15-day shutdown. And then the costs, that's also what I'm gonna recommend to the board. So Mr. Taruqua will go ahead and prepare a proposed recommendation, findings and recommendation, and then it'll go before the board, and you certainly will notify it of you will be notified of when the board will be meeting about this, and you can appear at that hearing as well.
Okay.
All
So
right.
recommending that I get closed for 15 days and
This
that
is my recommendation. Yes.
and I pay the
I'm not going to impose a fine. I'm not going to recommend a fine. I'm going to recommend though the costs. That's for the cost of the investigation and the hearing.
okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks to everybody. That concludes the hearing today.
Ms. Greiner, from yesterday's hearings, I just wanted to clarify something with you on those, if that's okay.
Sure.
I guess I was just a little confused or just wanted some clarification on the documents that you were looking for. Because the way that I had drafted or started to prepare the settlement agreement was it has the stipulated facts and the violations of law and all the 233B 622A rights that he's waiving, or each of the licensees are waiving. But then I guess my hangup was if he wanted a findings of fact and conclusions of law separate from that, or if I could just put a signature block on there, because I believe it includes everything on there. My only hangup on the separate decision in order of findings of fact and conclusions of law were because there was no settlement agreement that's been executed yet, I'm hesitant to propose stipulated facts that haven't been stipulated to yet. If you don't mind, I have a draft, the draft signature block. I can show it to you on here.
Okay. All right. If you could do that quickly.
So what I have here is the first one would be the two parties. So him,
Okay.
the executive director.
All
But
right.
then that, or on the next page, it would be,
That looks perfect.
okay. Is that
Yeah.
okay with you?
That's fine. My hesitation yesterday was just that after the hearing, I realized that, well, I don't want to approve any kind of, I don't want to look at a settlement agreement. You guys, that's up to the parties. I mean, I don't want to have any say about the wording of that.
Sure.
So,
Okay.
all
So
right.
the way that it's drafted is okay to comport with everything.
Perfect.
Okay.
That looks
All
perfect.
right.
All
Just
right.
to confirm. All right. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All
You
right.
too. Bye-bye.
Bye.